Hello, welcome to March 21st, 2022. I'm Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. Do I look and feel like sunshine? I should, because I do, and I did. I spent a good portion of the day yesterday laying out in the sun. Boy, what a difference that makes. Although maybe it was more than the sun. Maybe it was just the fact of a very good day. Yes, a very good day indeed. Such a good day, worth noting that down. This video is something that I do every morning, or at least this activity is. Lately, it's been something I've been doing by video. I call it the Good Life meditation, where I remember my objectives and principles for life, and the ones that I've accumulated thus far, and think about how I'm doing applying them to yesterday, last night, and today. Yeah, even at night. It's relentless. So last night and yesterday, I slept really well last night. I got up a couple of times for the usual senior citizen pit stop, but otherwise I slept really good. I did wake up just before the alarm, but just before the alarm, like could have been more than 15 minutes, and then promptly went back to sleep. And then the alarm gently woke me up, which is kind of a surprise because today's a big day at work. I think I have 7 meetings today. One of them is 4 hours long. It's a training event. Fortunately, I'm not the trainer, for a change. And I mean, not in general. I mean, just in what I mean by that is, usually almost every meeting I'm in, I'm running the meeting, which takes a lot of CPU. So that's all I meant. I'm always grateful, and I'm grateful for a chance to use my CPU, in whatever diminishing capacity, even though it's an x86 Intel, it feels like at times. So I'm surprised I slept. I'm surprised I didn't have my morning anxiety, because it seems to be tied to work, and today's a big day at work. Although I'm not expecting anything to go south today. I'm expecting it to be a good day. Anyway, I slept really good. And yesterday was a fantastic day. It was Yumiko's idea. She asked me on Saturday, we were out doing our chore. We were out after our chores, we were out having lunch together at the Olive Garden, a place that we like to go. And we split the tour of Italy, which comes with a salad, some sort of pasta, like a chicken parmesan and something else. And we just split it. And they do a nice job of making split plates and endless breadsticks, although Yumiko's very good. She only had half a breadstick. I ate the 2.5 remaining. I was less resistance. Anyway, she had suggested, she said, what do you want to do tomorrow, being Sunday? We thought about it, and she said, how about if we do nothing? Which was like, wow, okay, what a novel idea. I can't think of the last time we've done nothing, especially in this transition to this new life adventure, this new chapter of life. We have so much to do, mainly shopping for furniture and stuff for the new house. It's funny how we're shopping for furniture, and we kind of had an agreement about a month ago. We talked about it because we're planning to leave. We're going to go back to Japan, in some relatively few number of years. Basically, as soon as our daughter is out of school and safely on her own, we're going to go back to Japan. So Yumiko's like, what do we do? Should we be buying furniture, putting out money to buy furniture that we're just going to get rid of? And we agreed, yeah, we'll just do that. To hell with it. We'll just get rid of it. That's what we always do. Just, yeah, we'll invest in this life and buy the furniture and set it all up, and then, in a couple of years, take a match to it. Off to something else. Anyway, so she said, why don't we do nothing? Because we're kind of done with all that, right? I think we're almost certain that we have more furniture to buy, but we're kind of a little tired, and the house is nicely, comfortably set up. And so we did that. And what a good suggestion that was. So much fun yesterday. I think yesterday was perhaps one of the funnest days that I can remember. And it's just because we just hung out. We got up, we went out to breakfast together, we found a new restaurant. So we didn't stay home exclusively. We found a new restaurant, we had a really yummy breakfast together. I got a big cup of coffee at that place, we had a to-go cup. It was a sit-down place, but I got it in a to-go cup. And then we had a couple of, I guess we really didn't stay home so much. We had a couple of errands to do. We went to Target, we went to Michael's. So we did go out. And then we came home. Oh, and I took the dogs for 2 really long walkies. Yumiko worked on her space downstairs, her office space. And then I took my book, and in the morning, before Yumiko was still asleep, I got all caught up on my postings. I post on social media about quotes and vocabulary for my current book. I got all caught up on that. And then the piece that was the best was I went and sat in the backyard. We've got this beautiful, luxurious, grassy backyard that the owner of this place just really took a lot of time to put together. And it butts against this golf course with a lake. It's really pretty. And the weather was just perfect yesterday. So I took my little chair and a blanket and a dog and both my book and went out and enjoyed my time out there. That was really nice, just soaking up the sun. It doesn't really show, though, I don't think so much, because Yumiko, called out to me. She said, "You got suntan lotion on?" Yeah. I went in, found the suntan lotion strapped to the side of my motorcycle, slathered it up in the garage, and went back out. And then after that, I went back to Michael's because the framing work that they were going to do was still done. Came back, worked a little bit on that. Yumiko made a really good dinner, really good. Emily was still down in Irvine at her boyfriend, so I pitied the fool that she missed another of Mama's great Japanese Sunday dinners. I don't know why I say Japanese Sunday dinner, because Yumiko always makes Japanese dinner. But something about the Sunday one always feels good. And Yumiko and I are watching a movie together. We finished Hill House. Thank you, Michael, The Haunting of Hill House. Thank you, Michael, for suggesting that series. I think we're going to watch Midnight Mass next after this movie, maybe. But we're watching The Atom Project, which we're really enjoying. It kind of reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy in a way, for some reason. But we really like it. Good acting between the two atoms. Nice. And then I went to bed my usual, 8:30. I was like, I didn't sleep by 9. Got a full 8 hours of sleep. Like I said, with only incidental wakings. Let's do the good life. 7 objectives, 30 principles, as follows. Objective number 1 is to be always ready to die. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. 5 is to perform good actions. 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. And 7 is to just do one thing at a time and to do that thing slowly. Now, my 30 principles. Principle number 1 is the principle of war, to be always fighting against whatever I think is true and whatever important, seemingly important thing others propose to be true. Number 2 is the principle of reason, which has 3 sub-principles: honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are the attitude and approach I have to life, to be a reasonable man in the pursuit of that aforementioned war. Number 3 is the principle of the homunculus, or the idea that the soul is an comforting, wishful thought that we have, that instead of a soul, we get what I call a homunculus, a consciousness that lives between our ears, peeks up from behind our eyes, operates the instrument, the ship of this body, and will die as surely as my spleen will die when my machinery stops working. Next is the Anchorhold, the idea that though we can live together, we humans, each of us is ultimately utterly alone on our little rock, kind of like sticking out of the water. Each of us on a little rock sticking out of the sea, alone. We can yell at one another, wave, but we can't be with one another because the sea separates us, and that sea is bottomless. The next principle is the home of good and evil. The idea that right and wrong are boiled down to eventually to opinions, suspicions, biases, that they seem objective when we can measure them and get results and agree with one another. But ultimately, it boils down to opinion. It's a dangerous thing to know, but liberating when we realize that liberating isn't the right word. Enlightening to realize that right and wrong are something we make up. Next comes the principle of purpose. And in my life, I have 3 purpose. The first one is, I call it biology, which is to be a good husband and father. Mainly the father part. But being a husband facilitates the father part. 2 is to be a good human being, a virtuous human being, where virtue is defined as the efforts that I make towards the improvement of well-being for thinking creatures, their happiness. And the third principle is the execution of my own personal mission in life, which for me is to promote my book, Going Alone, available on Amazon or from my website, goingalone.org, in which case I sign it and draw a picture on the front for you. It's the story of how I came to these 7 objectives and 30 principles. The next principle is the atomic principle, a reminder that everything is made of atoms and molecules that are not long in keeping their constituent structure here, and very soon will fall apart, and I will be gone and nothing. You too. I won't see you afterwards. It's the only chance we get. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is so that we can abide it, understand it, to accommodate that fact, and live better accordingly. I sometimes try to remember the nature of something. It's the nature of this routine, doing this good life meditation every day, to cause the good life to be more innate in my routine, in my activities. I don't have to really remember it. I just kind of is part and parcel of how I live my life. I find myself doing things throughout the day in accord with a good life, largely, I think, because of this daily verbal exercise of reciting these objectives and principles. That's the nature of this, the yield of this endeavor. Next comes the pirate ride, the suggestion, the observation, the holding of faith that free will is an illusion. Well, it's not really a prayer. That's not really what I mean. It's not like I'm delighted at the idea that we don't have free will. It's just simply something I can't help but believe, can't help but not believe. I don't believe that free will is there. I think that we are just jostling chemical clumps. We tell ourselves that we're making choices, but really, and we are, but the choices that we make, the yield to the right or the left, up or down, yes or no, is the only choice that we ever could have actually made. And I can't prove that. I can't. It's faith. How you can argue with faith? Next comes the maturity, and it's the principles of wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we are able to remember our successes and failures, and to have the strength to avoid the failures again, and to repeat our successes, or to improve upon our successes. Next comes the social principle. We are social animals. We need one another. Then public speaking, a reminder to use few words, carefully chosen words, and deliberate words, and to never, ever, 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 ever gossip. And it's easy to know when you're gossiping, when I'm gossiping. It's when I'm saying something about someone, and I pray to God they don't know what they don't hear. I may not actually pray, but it's like if I turned around and they were standing behind me while I said it, how would I feel? If I wouldn't be embarrassed, or not fooling myself that I would be embarrassed, that I'm not gossiping, but I would be embarrassed, then perhaps I need to think about that. Maybe not talk that way. Or talk about others in that way. Temperance is next, and the three sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy. We suffer when we deny ourselves what we want, which is what temperance is. We result in a simple life when we are able to control our consumption of everything, all things related to living: food, drink, work, play, sex, hobbies, everything. That's a simple life. And then we use apathy to recognize what is outside of our control. Again, really not sure apathy belongs here. I haven't yet found a better home, though. Well, maybe I'll just stop saying that until I do. It's like wiping a pane of glass with a sprayer and a wipe, and there's just one little spot there that just won't come out. Maybe I'll just leave it there, but yeah, I see it every time. It's like apathy. It's not that I want to wipe it away, I just want to move it somewhere else. So maybe that example isn't good. Next comes the horror show. Life is a horror, chock full of terrible things. And I want to remember that so I can be sensitive to those who are suffering and help them in some way, and also to be more cognizant of the real nature of the world. There's good too, but sure is a lot of pain. Not just for humans, but for animals too. Then comes the principle called the Feast of Offal. Offal being the waste byproduct of our butcher's art, rendering an animal into, sellable products, pork chops, or I shouldn't say pork, maybe I'm thinking of a cow, loin chops, rump roast, flank steaks. You end up with a bunch of waste products that you usually just kind of discard or grind them into sausage. I hate using this analogy, especially given the horror show. But it is possible for us to I'm getting off track here. We humans can have something similar in the course of rendering our days of our lives into, potable living. Potable living, what an interesting idea, if I do say so myself. In rendering the raw material of life into something good, something worthwhile, some endeavor of home and family, and etc. We generate a lot of waste, kind of like the butcher with their waste, and we can either discard that or grind it into sausage in some way. It's when we choose instead to gobble it all up and make ourselves sick, and then just like dwelling on all the stuff that's outside of our control, or being intemperate in our living or our thinking, and then we spew it out. We've had enough. It kind of makes us sick, and we spew it out on others, and getting upset, blowing up, just expressing our intemperate living. Then we make others sick. Then we make a scene, and I don't want to do either. So I'll try to first of all keep my rendering to a minimum, live a simple life. And then what waste product I have, I will discreetly reuse in some way, or if I need to, I'll discard it. And if I feel sick in the process, if my intemperate living makes me sick, I'll try to hold it in, maybe swallow it back down, gross as that sounds, but not spew it out upon others. And when others are spewing their own spew, then I'll try not to consume it. I spent a long time on this one, talking about that one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to relate in some ways. Okay, moving on. There's two principles next. They kind of go together. The principle of distraction and another principle called agency and the great indifference. The way that they work together is that we spend our lives using activities and thoughts to distract ourselves from the fact that it appears that the universe is an uncontrolled chaos engine without any God at the wheels. And we're kind of on our own. When we distract ourselves with things like our getting an education, as we come into adulthood, we distract ourselves. First I'll get an education, then I'll get married, and I'll create a family, and I'll have hobbies, and I'll do all kind of stuff. Maybe I'll go to war, and I'll come back a hero, and then that'll be my thing, and I'll go through life, all of that. And if I'm lucky, I can make it from adolescence all the way to death with my God loves me. It's the world. I'll live forever. I'll see my family and my loved ones after life. All that stuff. The emptiness out there isn't real. Not seeing the great indifference, not apprehending it. It's an interesting trick. Because otherwise, if we see and recognize the great indifference, then what? Well, I can tell you what. Go on living. Try to muster up some objectives and principles to live by, and then try to live a good life accordingly. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but it can be done. Oh wow, crap. We are alone. I am alone. I won't be here forever. There is no God to love me. There are no absolute laws. I have to do the hard work myself. Okay, let's do it. That's the alternative. Next comes a principle called the best seat in the house. This is a pretty good one. The idea that I'll be satisfied where I am, who I am, and what I'm doing, while all the while striving to make things better, and be better, and live better. The next principle is called the Path of Wildness. I like to say that it's easy to find. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. It's the way to have successive chapters in life that are more significant than the passage of time and the marking of birthdays and the celebration of major life events. It's the way to break life up into episodes by having the courage to pull up roots and move on. And there's a way to it. Have a look at my book if you want. I go into more detail. Okay, next is the risk of avoiding risk. It's the name of a principle. The idea is that in life we have surface level risks and then a deep, deep risk. The surface level risk is, education, a job, a spouse, a home, and a family. and then all the things that come with that, including saving for a peaceful retirement, or planning for it. And then there's a deep, deep risk, which is to find ourselves, so to speak. It's a real thing. You can find yourself, or at least you can try. And there's some yield to that, because it couples with the great life adventure. I'm sorry, with the risk of avoiding risk. When we seek after that, I kind of mixed my mind up here. I got ahead of myself. There's another principle coming up called the great life adventure. And when we seek after that deep level understanding of ourselves, it causes us to embark on a great life adventure and to begin to build episodes into our life. And the whole thing yields a more intimate and seemingly purposeful life than the mere ticking of the marks of the calendar, not the social calendar, but the calendar of adult living. Yep, got that education, got that car, got that wife, got the career, saving for retirement. What's next? Oh, death? Is there nothing more? Yeah, there can't be more, but you better do it now. I mean, really, now. Like as in this year. But only if you're willing to take that risk. The next principle is called Synonymation, and this consists of falsity, being untrue, credulity, believing things too easily, hope, which is an empty, vacuous want. It can be fun. There you go. It's fun. It can be interesting, but it doesn't really do much other than just comforting. And I'm more about doing something. Faith, which is believing something where we believe that the belief itself is justification for the belief. That's just too many beliefs. And certainly not a very not a very good thing to rest our hat upon, because we can use faith to believe absolutely anything. The question being, can we believe untrue things on faith? Well, certainly we can, which means that faith is not a good tool to understand what is really true, if we really want to know what's true. Superstition, category of believing things where it's more entertainment than truth. Authority, believing something because someone seems to have a position of strength and certitude and support says it's true. It's not a good reason to believe. Dogma, which is related to tradition and just the way things are supposed to be according to our community and the way that we live. That's not a good reason to believe either. And then the last one is not a category of belief. It's gossip, which is a very grievous sin. The consequence of all of these sins is damnation in the here and now. The next principle is complete oblivion, which I think I dwelled on enough. Just the idea that after we're dead, we won't be able to see our loved ones again. We won't be able to make up. We won't be able to seek after justice. The only chance we get for any of those things is the chance that we have in the here and now. To that end, I did call my mom yesterday. The conversation was brief. But I did do it. After that comes the Great Life Adventure, which I talked about just a moment ago. It's one or more experiences or episodes of life that really give us a story. And you can have more than one. I'm getting ready. Unique and I are getting ready for our next. So it takes a couple of years to really prompt for a big one, to prepare for a big one. Next comes the season of philosophy, a principle, wherein the idea to, in the course of life, sometimes we might feel inspired to record something that we've learned, to write it down or paint it or make a video. Especially if we've had a couple of great life adventures, or even one, they can yield that. The muse will show up later in life. And we better do that while the muse speaks, because she tends to whisper in our ears and then go away. Next comes the bullseye aim. We strive for the bullseye target, but we usually miss. Sometimes by a lot, sometimes by a little, sometimes we hit it square. But that's the rarity. So, like I had a big meeting on last week, on Thursday. It was a definite bullseye aim. Looked really good, but we definitely missed the mark. A big one today, another one. I imagine we'll have another bullseye aim, but maybe we'll have improved our mark since Thursday. It's the part 2 of the same meeting we had on Thursday. Wish me luck. Bullseye aim, though. Okay, uphill climb. Trudge, trudge, trudge. Up, up, up. It feels like a trudge, but it can be fun too. Trudge, trudge, trudge. Don't stop and look. Don't forget to stop and look around. It's dangerous to stop and build a hobbit hole at the lower levels. You'll never see much. You can have a very comfortable life down there. It tends to be warm. There's fresh water, but the heights yield incredible vistas. Things hard to explain to the people that never move on. Likewise, maybe they have something that they experience down there in the lowlands that we can't understand because we did move on. That's a possibility. Next comes arena and utility. Life is an arena for the use of our principles in the pursuit of better living. Nothing is enough, a principle. Maybe not absolutely nothing. That would probably not be enough, but at least very little. It's something to strive for, but maybe not go all that way, all that far. Less is better. And finally, excuse me, last principle is the principle of fun. A reminder to have a good time. Okay, well that's it. That's my good life meditation. My good life creed. 7 objectives, 30 principles that I use to live a better life. And that are explained in the story of how I came about them, and these are principles and objectives themselves in my book, Going Alone. Now, for the coming day, it's a Monday, full day of work. I think I'm ready. I'm going to get up from now, go downstairs, feed the dogs, feed myself, get to work. And I've got all those meetings. I'm going to push through them best I can. And another day in the bag. To what end? To what end a day in the bag? To what end? It's a good, hard, solid day of work, supporting my family, taking care of us, making sure that we're comfortable, that we have enough to eat, we have warm clothes to wear, that my daughter can go to college, that she can soon be able to graduate and head out on a life, create a life of her own. Yeah, so that's what. It's a worthwhile endeavor. It's good to get up early. It's good to work hard. It's good to improve. It's good to make a good life. Take care. Be safe, but not too safe.